Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning and the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook called New and Exciting Allinson Recipes, put out by the Allinson Flour Company. It's undated. It's undated and it's very difficult to tell when it was actually published. I'm going to say definitely, absolutely, for sure, prior to 1965, because all of the measurements inside are imperial. And 1965, I believe, is when Great Britain moved to metric. And I can't imagine that many cookbooks after 1965 used the old measurement system. So pre-1965, probably close to post-World War II, because a lot of these recipes are very sparse or sparing with their ingredients. And the recipe we're going to do today is called Queen of Puddings. And it doesn't use Allinson flour. It uses Allinson breadcrumbs. So Allinson was a flour company, but it was also a bakery, and they baked bread. Apparently, both of these apparently Allinson still exists in England. So that was a half pint of milk, and that's an English pint, not an American pint. Allinson still exists as both a bakery and a flour company, although they're split. They're not owned by the same companies anymore. So I've got the milk in this pot. I've got it on a low heat, and to that we're going to put in a little bit of butter, not much. We're going to melt that in, and the sugar. So as I was saying, at some point, a Canadian family, the Westons, pulled together a bunch of English companies that were all associated in the food business into one giant corporation. And in the years since then, they've bought and sold and bought and sold and bought and sold. And apparently, the Allinson Bread Company still exists. It's part of that large conglomerate, but the flour company was spun off into a much smaller corporation all on its own. That's kind of what I get from this, but by the time you watch this video, it could have changed. So I'm supposed to heat the milk until the butter melts. And then I add the breadcrumbs. And I just cook for a few minutes until the breadcrumbs swell. So just stir those in and wait for them to swell. Now, I'm supposed to take this off the heat at this point and set it aside to cool. It doesn't specifically say how far to cool it, but I have to imagine they mean room temperature. So I'll just leave it here on the counter to cool, and we'll come back for the next step. This has cooled to room temperature. So next step, I've got a couple of eggs here, and I need to put the yolks in with the breadcrumb mixture and keep the whites out because we're going to whisk them up into a nice froth. So, and sometimes eggs just don't crack or separate the way you want them to. This one's not too bad. There we go. So, whites in the copper bowl, yolks into the pot, and got a pie dish that's been buttered. So, get those egg yolks stirred in, and then we pour that into the pie dish. Now the oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or gas mark 4/5. I guess that's halfway between 4 and 5. I don't know. Gas mark is not something we use here. So I'm going to put this in. It says approximately half an hour until set. The pudding is almost cooked in the oven, and the next step is to make the meringue that goes on top. So I've got the 2 egg whites in the copper bowl. I've got white table sugar, plain white table sugar. The recipe asks for castor sugar. Not readily available here. And when I say not readily available, I know that people always tell me, oh, you can get it on, I can't get it at the local grocery store that I normally shop at. That's what I mean when I say not readily available. I'd have to go out of my way to get castor sugar. There is something in Canada that is fairly close to castor sugar, and that is called fruit sugar. And it's just a little bit more finely ground than table sugar. Pretty much, if you see caster sugar in an English recipe, you live in Canada or the United States, you can just use white table sugar. It'll be fine. So we're going to whip up these egg whites into a nice froth for a meringue. Now that's a lot of sugar for the meringue, and I didn't put it all in. I held some back. There's more sugar in the meringue than in the pudding. And then it asks for a further couple of spoonfuls of sugar to sprinkle on top before you put it back into the oven. I didn't put all of the original amount in. See how it works out. Generally, I don't like my meringue as sweet, maybe, as other people do. Okay, I'm going to pull the pudding out of the oven so I don't overbake it. Just sit it there for a moment. And that is a really nice glossy meringue. Maybe not as sweet as I thought it was going to be. So, it asks to put a layer of jam on top of the pudding, and it says jam, preferably apricot. I'm not a big fan of apricot jam, so I'm going to use our homemade strawberry. And it doesn't say how much, but it just says a layer, a thick layer on top. So I like that, thick layer on top. And it doesn't tell me to let this cool down because we're going to put it back into the oven with the meringue on top. Okay, I think that's all the jam that's actually left in the jar. That's not very thick. Oh well, it'll do. So, layer of jam. Homemade strawberry jam. Nothing like homemade strawberry jam. Now, on goes the meringue. And again, there's only 2 egg whites worth of meringue here, so it's not going to be a huge, high pile of meringue. And you could definitely pipe this on top to get those nice little peaks. It asks you to put on the top. Craggy, they get nice and brown. And sprinkle a little sugar on top. And back into the oven for another 20 minutes.
Yay, pie! Hey, friends. Hey, Glenn.
Queen of puddings.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
So
Pudding.
not a pie. It's not going to come out gracefully. I was hoping I could get it out as a slice, but
Got a spoon just in case.
it's not going to come out like that.
Jam?
Yeah.
Oh, I see why it's a pudding. Now I see why it's a pudding. Let me help you out there, Glenn.
Can you help me out? Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, so interesting. Interesting.
The jam makes it really good. That's all I had so far
I
is
mean,
the jam. I wasn't sure if it was spoon or fork, but
I'm going to try spoon. I mean, that is our breakfast jam. That's our homemade jam.
all right. Is it like a custard and a?
Huh.
It's a lovely, pleasant, sweet.
Yeah.
Works for me.
So the base,
It's not. It's all soft though.
it is very soft. There's no, texturally, there's not a whole lot of difference going on. So it's breadcrumbs. It's a breadcrumb custard at the bottom.
Okay.
With a layer of jam and then the meringue on top. And there's no flavor anywhere in this except what the jam brings. Right? So there's nothing in the filling. There's no vanilla, there's no
So you can pick whatever jam you like.
whatever jam you like. Yeah. And make that jam the flavor. I kind of really like this.
I've already had 3 or 4 bites.
And there's not a lot of sugar in it. There's more sugar in the meringue than the pudding.
Okay.
And there's probably more sugar in the jam. So whatever jam you decide to use. But if you could put like a gooseberry jelly, a little bit tart.
You could. So many choices.
Yes.
Compotes.
Okay, so it's I've had a tough time nailing down when this book is from, but judging by some of what's going on here, I'm thinking pretty close to post World War II. Because there's no extravagance in this book whatsoever.
I'm just fascinated by the fruity pancakes. Sorry, I got sucked in by fruity pancakes. I was like, what does that mean?
And that is reflected in this. It's not dull, it's not plain, but it's not extravagant or it's a sturdy after dinner, let's have something for pudding.
Yeah, the classic sense of pudding.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So I'd give it a try. I'd probably make this again. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.